Hello everyone, Forest Focus as Ange Postecoglou remains Nottingham Forest manager despite plenty of internet buzz around the time of recording. He's been written off by plenty, but are the perceptions around his team's defensive weaknesses fair? And if they are, can they be fixed? Joining me to discuss all that and more, great to welcome back friend of the show, Harrogate Town goalkeeper James Belshaw. Belly, good evening. How are you this evening?
Yeah, all good. No, thanks for having me on as always. Like I said, put little one to bed, and then what better way to spend an evening than going through some of these goals that that have gone in over these last few weeks.
Well, I didn't. I should have thanked you as soon as you logged on for doing it. You've already looked at these goals and sent me a bleak message about them. So we'll get into that. What we'll do is for people who are listening, not watching, or watching, don't know what's happening. Belly's picked out some of the goals that we've conceded. We're going to go through them with his observations, some general themes. WT Analysis, Will Tomlinson has sent some stats as well, comparing Ange and Nuno, and then we'll draw some conclusions at the end as we go through it all. What are before we get into the goals, any general themes that you've identified, general thoughts on them before we really drill down into them?
Well, I think when you text me over the weekend saying, "Oh, can you have a look through the goals, see if there's any underlying themes?" You think there's been 4 Premier League games, a League Cup game, and 2 European games. It'd probably be hard to kind of decipher any sort of common themes, but we're sort of having a look back through them, and there seems to be two sort of common themes amongst the goals. I think the defending from set pieces has left a lot to be desired for in some of these instances, and the defending in wide areas. I think there's 12 out of the 15 goals that Forest have conceded can be attributed to either a set piece or deliveries from wide areas, or not stopping across, or not defending properly in wide areas. And then the other three are a penalty for Voltemada, Guimaraes from the edge of the box, and then the breakaway, the third Michelin goal. So outside of those three goals, all of the goals can kind of be put into those two brackets, which for a club the size of Forest competing in one of the elite competitions in Europe is a real sort of concern, and I think is an area where Ange has really kind of sort of fallen down on, I guess, and set pieces has pretty much been Forest downfall in these games that they probably should have been on the right side of it. You look Sunderland at home, prime example. It's losing 1-0 to a wide free kick, and the marking at the back is really poor. I'm sure we'll go into a few of these, but yeah, those were the two kind of underlying themes that I've seen having looked through these past kind of 3 or 4 weeks of Postecoglou ball.
So what we'll do is we'll tell you the game, we'll tell you the goals, obviously. If you want to pair it up with your highlights on your phone or whatever, that'd be great. We've got some stills. I'm always loath to nick highlights because I will get pinged by YouTube and have my channel shut down, which wouldn't be good for me financially. So we play it safe whenever we do this. Just before we get into it, let's take an ad break for the top James Belshaw's wearing. If you've got young kids who want to play football, tell us about what you're wearing.
Yeah, so this is my company, East Midlands Elite Soccer. So I run a goalkeeping academy in Nottingham. We run 3 evenings a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. So coach about 75, 80 kids a week at the minute. So always looking to expand. And yeah, if there's any sort of budding goalkeepers in the Nottingham area, then feel free to get in touch on socials. And yeah, they can all be found on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, etc.
There we go.
Yeah, thanks for that, Matt. I appreciate that.
That's all right. That's all right. Right. Which goal would you like to start with? I've got them all queued up.
Or should we go chronologically and go back to the Arsenal game?
Right. Second goal or third goal, because they're different themes. Which one do you prefer?
Go for the third one, because that's kind of a key sort of thing that goes into the Swansea game as well.
Yeah, right here we go. Right, this is Arsenal's third goal. If people don't remember it, they've got a free kick wide on our left. Someone is stood over it. I can't see who that is. Belly will talk us through our setup, and they've got 2 men on the edge of the box, Trossard and Declan Rice, and I think Rice receives it. But what's your initial observations about how we're set up here?
So my initial observation, as well, from putting my goalkeeper's hat on it, Matt Sells has got 6 people along the 6-yard box. There's 4 Arsenal players. Not one of those Forest players is looking at where the Arsenal players are. So they're not man marking. The theme of sort of the way Forest defend wide free kicks, the way they defend corners, is this zonal marking, which doesn't appear to be working. Now, for me, I'd like to see two of those back players maybe grabbing hold of Forest threats in the box there. But the biggest issue for me is the edge of the box, and that was an issue with the first goal as well. When Madueke puts the corner in, it gets headed clear, and then Zubamendi strikes it first time, which is an unbelievable finish. But Forest don't have anyone defending the edge of the box from corners, and in this scenario here, I think it Gabriel and Zubamendi there are going to put a block on. Is it McAtee and I think that's Elliott there? Going to put a block on the edge of the box. So that ball to Declan Rice is on. The ball gets played to Declan Rice. It then gets clipped into the box, second phase, and then Zubamendi finds himself free. I can't see who it's between at the back post.
Nico Williams was definitely one. I think
Yeah,
no, it's not Morato.
there,
Definitely Nico anyway.
Gets above Nico Williams and heads it in at the back post. But for me, it's the setup. It's leaving the edge of the box free. It's just inviting that pass to Declan Rice, and a player of Declan Rice's quality, Declan Rice to Trossard. I think it then goes into the box. You can't leave people with that sort of space. And like I said, the first goal they should have learned from that. Zubamendi was free on the edge of the box. Yes, it's an unbelievable first time finish, but again, there's no pressure on the ball. Goes into the Swansea game as well. This theme of it's the last goal for Swansea that gets headed clear, ball on the edge of the box. Again, it's an unbelievable strike that comes off the post and then goes in second phase. But again, look at the setup. So this is the corner setup we've got here. Zonal marking now. The first goal for Swansea was zonal. I know I'm kind of jumping between goals, but it's kind of as themes are coming into my head. But the first goal for Swansea, Forest had 9 players in and around the 6-yard box. Swansea had 5. And a Swansea player gets a head on the ball at the near post and heads it in. Now this setup here, this is the third goal. Forest have gone zonal again in the box. I think it's the front post man that actually heads this clear to the edge of the box. But again, look at that. There's 2 players spare on the edge of the box. So any kind of second phase defending, Swansea going to pick that ball up. So even if Forest win the first phase, they're always in trouble from the second phase because they haven't got anyone just shielding the edge of the box. Now, for me, you don't necessarily need to put 2 players out there marking the 2 Swansea players on the edge of the box. You can have one. You can have one sort of between penalty spot, edge of the box, just to land on seconds, just to be a deterrent for either that pass in the Arsenal free kick or in here. When that ball gets cleared to the edge of the box, then it's a Forest shirt that's coming up with the ball. It's not one of the Swansea players. And look, like we said, again, it's an unbelievable strike that comes off the upright, and then the rebound gets smashed in. Now, you actually sent me a message about this goal, about Victor's position in here, and look, it gets smashed with pace, and it comes really, really quick at him. So it is difficult. But for me, he's got drawn towards the ball there. I'd like to see him probably a yard, maybe 2 yards deeper there. And it does beat him quite close to his body. So maybe if he's a yard or 2 deeper, it gives him that extra bit of reaction time to be able to parry the ball away. But again, it comes from the setup. It's leaving the edge of the box free. It's this zonal kind of ringing of the 6-yard box with sort of 8 players around the 6-yard box, 2 half protecting the short corner. It was the same I remember doing when I was on the show last year, and there was the Liverpool game at home, and I think Jota scored. He comes off cells and heads it in. And again, that zonal marking is for me. When I'm setting up from a corner, I'd like 1 in the front zone, 1 in the middle zone on the edge of the 6-yard box attacking the ball, and then for me, man for man accountability. Your man doesn't score. That's for me the optimum sort of way to defend these balls. But if you're not going to protect the edge of the box, and then balls are going to, that's where the second phase are going to go. As defenders, they're taught to head the ball away from goal. Ideally, you want it to go wide, but if that's not on, you want to head it as far away, try and clear the box. But then if you've got 2 Swansea players picking the ball up, then you're either inviting a shot or then a second phase that becomes difficult to defend. So even in these 2 games here, you can see there was the first goal for Arsenal wide free comes from a corner. The third goal from Arsenal comes from a wide free kick. The first goal from Swansea comes from a corner. It's the header at the near post. The third goal from Swansea comes from a corner, second phase. So there's already, if you're Postecoglou looking at that going, well, we've conceded 6 goals in 2 games, 4 of them have been from set pieces or corners. Surely that's something we need to address. And then, as you see, as we go through the goals and go through the games, it doesn't seem to really have been addressed.
Just picking up on a couple of things there before we move on. For people who missed it, myself included, until about 2 hours ago, John Victor was called up to the senior Brazil squad as a replacement for Edison, which I had no idea about. So congratulations to him. Igor Jesus is in it anyway. In terms of the setup that you have at Harrogate or you want, is the man in the middle your best header of the ball and the guy at the near post is your second best? Or how does that work?
It varies. The guy covering the near post would more often than not be probably a midfielder, someone who is comfortable at heading the ball, but probably not one of your stronger sort of headers of the ball. The man who's
spring on them or something.
Yeah, but because that kind of near post zone, that's you hear the old cliche fans, it doesn't beat the first man from a corner, doesn't beat the first man from the corner. So that person there is to protect my near post zone, because if that's a flat delivery into the near post, then I know that my defender that's covering level with the front post about 3 yards out, varies if it's an in swinger or an out swinger on the positioning, they're there to defend that ball. Then the one in the middle of the six is probably more that's one of your better headers of the ball. It's a leader who likes to go and attack the ball, that you take the responsibility of marking away from him. So his sole job is, if that ball's in the area, to come and head it. Now, I work with that player as well, because the instances where goalkeepers get blocked in. So if I get blocked in, I might rely him to come a little bit deeper to be able to defend maybe 4 or 5 yards out. Whereas if I've got time, I can push him up I can push him up to sort of 6-7 yards. Our setup kind of varies depending on threats and what we've seen from opposition corners. I would say a staple of it would always be someone in the near post, level with the near post, 3 to 4 yards out, and someone in the middle of the 6 yard box. And then around that, we may have another back zone across the 6, or maybe a front zone, kind of where Forest have conceded a lot of goals attacking across that near post. We may have someone sort of on the corner of the 6 yard box there, but everyone else is pretty much a man-to-man setup. And like I said, in our league, set pieces are probably more sort of an issue than at the top level. But you see here at, again, one of the better teams in the country, Nottingham Forest, in the Europa League, are still struggling from set pieces. But yeah, it's about having a goalkeeper that's comfortable with the setup, defenders that are comfortable with the setup, and a manager who, again, believes his philosophy and what he wants to instill across the board, whether he wants headers to go and big men to go and head the ball, whether he wants blockers, whether it's a hybrid system. But I think this zonal sort of marking system has been a bit of an Achilles heel for Forest.
Yeah, because I was going to ask about flexibility in different opponents, because obviously Arsenal are probably the best at it, but you see even like they set up differently to other teams I've seen. And this season they seem to be working it. So Trossard, who's one of their smaller headers, is often getting free at the back post and nodding it back across because no one's watching him and things like that. I suppose with the in-depth analysis of the Premier League these days, would you expect different setups for different teams then? Or would you just prefer, especially for Forest right now, stick to something and find something that works?
Well, currently what they've stuck to
not working at all.
Isn't working. So I'd be looking to change it. But yeah, Arsenal are the best in the country at set pieces, and look, especially at this top level, the delivery is on the money more often than not. 9 times out of 10, it's an unbelievable ball that's really difficult to defend. And look, there are instances where you're going to get beat in the air. You're not going to win every first phase. You're not going to win every second phase, and you are going to concede goals from set pieces. But it's about being as prepared as you can and being as strong as you can and clear with the role. So there has to be, from management or set piece coaches or whoever's in charge of the defending set pieces, there has to be clarity of roles. So every player has a clear instructions of what their task is. Am I a blocker? Am I a man marker? Do I go to this zone? Do I attack the ball? Am I drifting to the back post? Am I looking at this threat? But then there has to be some sort of, I mean, they call it an audible in the NFL, don't they? There has to be some kind of, okay, the setup's slightly different. So that's where, like, you see in your players, so maybe that middle zone player or your goalkeeper, more often than not, will sort of have a look across for the setup and may make an adjustment if one of their bigger threats has drifted towards the back post, or you've seen a signal that you've kind of picked up on when you've been watching the scouting footage. Oh, okay, this is going to be that delivery. But in the Premier League, you'd expect, like you said, with Arsenal, you'd expect them to change things because people will watch them, people will prepare for them. Everything, again, particularly at the top level, everything's scrutinised, everything's gone through, every movement, everything's analysed. So you'd expect teams to change, but yeah, it's having clarity of the roles, but then having the leadership and the sort of nous on the pitch to be able to adjust people accordingly to what you're seeing in front of you.
Before we give everything away, we should move on to a couple of other goals. Just before that, a quick word for the Trent Navigation. This is going out on Thursday, so you can watch the England game at the Nav. Kick-off 7:45 p.m. England versus Wales. Watch it on the big screens, inside and outdoors. Get your beers, get your pizza there. You don't need to book or anything. Just show up on the day. And thanks to Everton Nav for their support. Which goals would you like to look at next? Which one?
Well, I mean, we'll stick with this. Just go to the Sunderland one.
Yeah,
we'll just stick with this and kind of tie this sort of the set piece stuff. So this is Sunderland's goal now. Going into this game off the back of the defeats to Arsenal, this, and I think this was after the Burnley game. Am I correct? So they had the
this would have been after Betis as well.
Oh yeah, so Burnley and Betis. So this would be a game that Forest would have earmarked. Okay, this is where it's got to turn. Like, this is where we need to be getting 3 points against a team that's just come up. Granted, Sunderland have had an excellent start to the season, but to concede a goal like this is a really poor goal. Now, the setup here, again, they've got the line sort of just inside the 18-yard box. Now, I don't have an issue with the depth of the line. I think that's a pretty sort of okay line for me. Now, the two issues that I have when I watch the footage of this is the three Sunderland players at the back. Now, for me, that's ringing alarm bells already, because I think it's Wood and I can't remember who else is marking at the back stick.
Wood, Williams, and Milenkovic are the three.
Yeah, so I think there's Wood and Williams that are in with the three at the back stick. Now, that's a 3v2 overload at the back stick. Now, that's where Sunderland are going to target the ball, and that's where it does end up going. Now, for me, as harsh as it is, I put that responsibility on the people who are at the back, so Williams and Wood, but also on Matt Sells. Now, as a goalkeeper, you're taught to look across the line. Again, like we've just spoke about, adjusting players. Can you adjust players in the line accordingly? Where do you want your better headers of the ball? Okay, I can see they're overloading the back stick, so I might need to flatten my line out a bit more. Might need to bring Milenkovic in to deal with that. So it's not a 3v2, so it becomes a 3v3. But from the start of this, I watched it on the coverage. So Sells goes to the near post, sorts his wall out, absolutely fine, no problem. Goes into the middle of the goal, takes up a position, but then doesn't look across the line at all. And for me, that's an issue where I think someone's got to take responsibility for that. And Matt Sells, for me, should be looking to that zone, realising that they've got a 3v2 overload at the back stick, and I need to address that. I need Milenkovic across there. I think it's Morato there. I might need to flatten him out a little bit, because you've got Morato and whoever's in front of Morato there, with a player in between them. So you've got two doing one job. Milenkovic is free there. So Forest have got an overload, so they can afford to flatten the bodies down. Then as the delivery comes in to the back stick here, Sunderland work a bit of a block. It's not a proper block, I would say. And the 15's free at the back stick. Now, I've been really positive with Matt Sells from my time on here last season and this season. I thought he was excellent against Newcastle at the weekend. But for me here, if your defensive line is 17 yards from goal, 16, 17 yards from goal, Matt Sells should be starting 4 or 5 yards out there, because we can see on the still here, he's 1 to 2 yards off his line. Fine, if he doesn't make the decision to come for it, you've got to respect that. He's in the heat of the moment in the game. If he wants to stay at home, that's fine. But I think if his start positioning is a bit more aggressive, and I'd like to see him probably say 4 yards out there, first of all, I think he can potentially come and get involved with this ball, because there's enough space between him and the defense. Even though the defense is retreating, there's enough space for him to come and engage. So I think for me, the two things that I would question with Matt Sells would be his vision looking across and the setup, and his part in not making sure there's the overload at the back stick, but then also his start position. I would like to see him starting 3 or 4 yards, because as that ball travels in, that header's 4 yards out. And I think for me, if that was me in a League Two game, I'd like to think that I'd be starting a little bit higher, because if he starts 4 yards out, as that ball travels, if he realizes he's not going to get there, his feet, being an elite level goalkeeper that he is, are quick enough to be able to drop. So he can drop to sort of 1-2 yards off his line to then buy himself more reaction time. Because when we're dealing with, as goalkeepers, when we're dealing with sort of set piece situations or corner situations, if you can't come and get involved, you have to drop as deep as you can to buy yourself that reaction time, because more often than not, it's going to be a header or a volley from, I don't know, between sort of 5 to 10 yards out. So that extra yard that you can get by dropping deeper onto your line is so valuable when it comes to reaction time. So even if he starts 4 or 5 yards out, I do think he can still drop it and put himself in a position to make the save. But I think in this scenario, had he started higher, I think he probably could get involved. But again, it's another set piece where the marking at the back post it leaves a lot to be desired for.
Yeah, and the frustration with watching some of these goals from a layman's point of view is I don't think they're amazing balls that are being put in. They're not being whipped or anything. The Michelin goals, they're just clipped in. This one's it's a good ball, obviously, but they're just clipped in. So, yeah, it does add to the frustration. Do you want to do a Michelin goal, or do you want to do something else?
I mean, we've kind of the Michelin goal's very similar to that. It's the
I picked out the corner, actually. I've done the
corner.
Yeah,
we can go on to the corner, yeah, because the corner follows the themes that we spoke about here again.
So this just illustrates it's a corner. This is a better one, as the ball's... No, that's not the right one, sorry. That's the one. The ball's just been delivered, and that's how we're set up.
Yeah, so again, Forest have the advantage here, 2, 4, 6, 7 against sort of 5 in that 6-yard box area. Forest have the 2 players. Is it Hudson Odoi that they've got around?
Yeah, patrolling the yards.
For them, I'd rather one of them be a little bit higher, and one maybe marking that runner that's about to attack the 6-yard box. But it's a ball into the box where Gibbs White gets underneath it, and it's a header in that near post zone that happened against Swansea a couple of weeks before. So again, Michelin will have access to all this. And yeah, it's another poor goal from set pieces to concede. I think with zonal marking, the difficulty when you've got that many zonal markers is what area is each player defending. So if you've got, say you've got the near post zone and you've got 3 zonal players across a 6-yard box, it's very clear who's defending what zone. Now, there are instances where the ball gets clipped just over one of the zonal players, and then the zonal player behind him on the 6-yard box, oh, is that me? Is that him? But that's obviously down to the quality of the ball. But when you've got sort of 6, 7, 8, even in the Swansea game, 9 zonal players, there's not that much of an area to cover. So then it becomes really sort of ambiguous as to who's defending what area. So that lack of accountability and responsibility is, you end up people leaving the ball for someone else, or 2 players going for the same ball. And whereas if you've got a man and you've got, say, a hybrid system where you've got 2 zonals or 3 zonals and everyone else is man marking, it's clear your role is your man. Your man doesn't score. You get to the ball before him. And if the ball's in an area where one of the zonal players can go and attack it, or the goalkeeper can go and attack it, then they can obviously bail you out. But I just think cramming that many players into that sort of area, and they're all zonal, is a very difficult way to mark from a corner because of the ambiguity of it all. And when you've got big lads that are allowed a free run, because in that scenario against Michelin, the opposition, the Michelin players are starting in the 6-yard box. But if you've got players that start sort of 7, 8, 9, 10 yards out, they've got a free run on the defenders. So they're going to get a running jump. So they've got that extra height. You're almost a sitting duck as a defender if you sat there. So again, it goes back to that sort of theme we've addressed, I think, in some detail here with the set pieces. But I think let's come on to the other one now, the sort of defending in wide areas. And this was the other kind of theme that I sort of saw across the across the game. So the Arsenal goal, the second goal, when I think Calafiori plays the ball over the top, and is it Savona?
Yeah, Savona's second side. Savona's underneath it now.
Yeah. So he gets caught underneath the ball. So that's an error there in itself. A player, one ball over the top, shouldn't be putting Eze into here. But then it's a 2v1 against Victor Gyökeres, and the ball gets played across the box, and Gyökeres taps it in there. I mean, for me, you're recovering defenders. If that ball, that I don't have as much of an issue with the defending inside the box from this ball as that. The issue is obviously the first ball over the top, but it comes from a delivery across the box, which is a theme that kind of you go into the next game, which is the Swansea game. The second goal against Swansea, the own goal, ball in a wide area. You've got 2v1 scenario in there. I think it gets played into the 20 and he turns Ryan Yates. And I don't think Ryan Yates gets a stop. Yeah, this is still here. So in that scenario, Ryan Yates has got to be doing everything he can to block that shot. And as that ball comes in, is it Willy Bolly that ends up coming off the outside?
That's the wrong one, sorry.
Oh, it's fine. You can just yeah. So it again ends up in the Forest goal, but the issue is not stopping it at source, not defending well in wide areas when you've got the 2v1 advantage and you've got the Swansea player that initially puts the ball in. His back's away from goal. Ryan Yates has got him going where he wants him to go. That cross can't be coming into the box there.
Is the goalkeeper at fault there for selling himself, or would you have done the same thing and gambled?
Happens so quickly. I wouldn't be putting too much blame with the goalkeeper there. So that's so they call it a narrow box cross. So when you go on coaching courses and you're discussing where crosses come from, so that ball gets crossed from inside the box. So it's a narrow box cross. There's not much time to react. It is put in with pace. Now, I'd like to think the goalkeeper's given a shout, but a lot of things have got to happen from that ball getting smashed across the box. Bolly's got to hear the shout from the goalkeeper, adjust his position accordingly when his natural instinct is to try and clear the ball. So I wouldn't really put blame on Victor for that one. I think he's within his rights to kind of to cut out that cross.
We have got one more goal. Yeah, Burnley. Burnley's equalise. This is just as I can't think who the player who puts it in is. The ball's about to go into our box anyway. So give us your observations on our defensive line in our shape.
So I think here setup's pretty good. Forest have an overload. Burnley have got 3 attacking players attacking the box. You've got Morato on the centre forward. I think Elliott's tracking the man at the front. You got Zinchenko at the back person. That's where the issue comes from with this. Again, the ball gets delivered from a wide area where you'd want to be stopping the cross in those scenarios. But then from here, Zinchenko gets caught under the ball. Burnley player heads it down. Then I think is it Lyle Foster ends up having the shot that Zinchenko tries to recover and can't sort his feet out in time. But again, it comes from not stopping the ball at source, from not stopping the ball in wide areas, not dealing with the first ball. I think the setup was fine. So that's probably, you put that more down to Zinchenko will be disappointed with not winning the first header, and also Forest as a unit and the wide player out there not stopping the cross in the first instance. And again, that costs Forest in a game where I think Forest went 1-0 up very early on, wasn't it? Within a couple of minutes, Forest went 1-0 up, and yeah, it's another sort of couple of points dropped from a preventable sort of scenario. Yeah.
As you text me, 7 set pieces, 5 not defending wide areas, Bruno Guimaraes, a penalty and a breakaway. Doesn't make for pretty reading, I guess. Does it? We'll expand on that. We'll just take a word for, this is a good break point, take a word for our second sponsors, Home Move Estate Agents. Here's a video of a property that you can invest in, which I shall talk you through. It is a 2-bed apartment, 390 to 400,000 pounds. It's on Wilford Lane, I think, but it's on the website, so do check that out. Home Move Estate Agents. West-facing balcony offering breathtaking views of the River Trent and Embankment Park. Secure intercom, there you go, to get in with lift access, open plan lounge, kitchen and dining area designed for modern living, ample bedrooms, each with ensuite and spacious walk-in wardrobes. And interestingly, I had to check this, it's got private mooring. So if you are the owner of a boat or a canoe, then this is the property for you. And if you're not, it's probably the property for you anyway. And it's got allocated parking if you just own a car like the rest of us, with electric vehicle options there for that as well. And if you're looking for an interior designer to spruce spruce the place up when you get it. Is that for Mrs. Belshaw? Am I right in thinking she's an interior designer?
Oh yes, Mrs. Belshaw. The Design Place Interiors on Instagram can be found if you need an interior designer. She's excellent, shall we say?
There you go. So if you, there it is. If you are looking for somewhere to buy, check out this flat on Home Move Estate Agents, and Ben Sales will sort you out. And we've got more properties to come as well. But check out that website, and then, as Belly said, once you bought a place, get in touch with Mrs. Belshaw, and she shall sort you out. Right, let me come off that screen, and then we'll go back to the general one. This is why I need a professional producer. Right, there we go. So those are the goals that we wanted to talk about. And then we've got some stats and general observations just from Will that I shall put on the screen if I've done the slides. Bear with. Okay, so yeah, Will has helped us out with some stats and observations comparing Nuno and Ange, because Belly wanted to see some if there was any comparisons. So I'll just run through them. You can see them on screen, but some general observations that Will sent around goals for, XG, and all that kind of stuff. And he picked out some themes, which I shall read out because they're better than my observations. Right, basically, long story short, he says goals and XG down, therefore results. Shot conversion is massively down. Under Nuno, his first 4 games and first 10, in fact, it was 12.7%. Last 4 of last season when we laboured, it was 10%. Under Ange, our shot conversion is 2%, which is absolutely horrific. So that is definitely one problem. Passing numbers are higher and more accurate, but that suggests we're putting the ball at risk less potentially. And then defensively, this was from a stat on Sky, a slide that they put up about how badly we rank in terms of defensive numbers under Ange. Admittedly, a very small sample size, which leads into all the discussions we've been having all this week. But XG conceded is up. Nuno had worse keeping in his start. That was probably, would that be Matt Turner? I think, yeah, it would, wouldn't it? Ange has been hurt by more errors. So errors per 90 under Nuno, it was 0.25. Under Ange, it's 1.25. Set piece record is pretty awful. It's actually pretty awful under Nuno to start with. So those are some basic observations that basically errors and shot conversion has really, really killed us. So thanks to Will for that. Based on what you've seen, Belly, we've obviously got a lot of problems. Are they fixable problems? Before we talk about whether Ange will stay or not, are the things you're seeing fixable, or are they just deep set problems that are here to stay?
I think the 2 glaring stats that you alluded to there, the shot conversion rate being at 2%, and the errors leading to goals or chances is up. I think those are, I probably wouldn't put them at the manager's door, because look, players make mistakes at all levels, more so at my level, by the way, than at Premier League level. Let me just caveat it by saying that. So, but as a manager, you can't account for individual errors costing goals. It's usually not down to tactics or kind of preparation. That's just kind of individual decision making or execution. The shot conversion being down again, does that in its blanket form, it would suggest that the forward players aren't making the most of chances that they're presented with. I think one of the kind of big plus points last season was Chris Wood's form. I think Chris Wood scored 20 Premier League goals from an XG of 13. So he's massively overperformed last season. And I think you can't expect Chris Wood to recreate those sort of numbers. I mean, I didn't put him in my fantasy team, and then he scored against Brentford, and I was ruining myself for that. But look, those 2 things you alluded to, I wouldn't put those at the manager's door. Now, the whole basis of doing a deep dive into stats is stats can be interpreted into whatever sort of narrative that you want. So I think the clear narrative that you're seeing on social media, online from Forest fans is, I don't think many people are happy with Postecoglou, and I think there's a majority of Forest fans would want him gone. Now, if you can find stats to back that up, then you can interpret them in that fashion. But what I would be I guess the more emphasis I'd be placing on stats would be if Postecoglou wasn't getting results, but his underlying numbers were great. So if his XG was high, if the XG against was low, but that's not the case. The XG for is down and the XG against is up. Now Matt Sells had a save percentage last year of 72%. His save percentage is 67%, which isn't really that much of a difference. But a lot of goalkeepers you'll see, if you look at the stats, will be around the sort of 60 to 80s ridiculous stats, like James Trafford in the Championship last year, 84%. So although 5% doesn't seem like a lot, in terms of where it put him in the Premier League, he was one of the top 2 or 3 last year, whereas I think it puts him like middle of the road this year. So I think if Forest were creating a plethora of chances but not taking them, and they were solid at the back but were being undone by worldies or being on the wrong side of tight games, then that's where I would be sort of fighting Ange's corner, because the results that they're getting aren't representative of the performance that they're putting in. But from those stats we've been sent and the discussions that we've had this week, they don't make for pleasant reading. And particularly, look, I feel like I'm all doom and gloom today. I like coming in and being positive about Forest, and I do try and be positive. But when I went through these goals the other day with kind of an analysis sort of hat on, and you're looking at those numbers, you're looking at the performances, like it really is hard to kind of see positives at the minute. Now, again, we'll come on to the Ange discussion. I think you've had that with a lot more experienced sort of pundits than me. But yeah, in terms of the stats, if the underlying numbers were better, then I'd be a bit more encouraged. But from what we're seeing from that graphic, and then the one that you sent me with the Sky stats where Forest ranked bottom of the Prem for goals conceded and chances and etc., and it doesn't make for good reading. And yes, 4 games is a small sample size, but we're also seeing the same themes against Betis. We're seeing the same themes against Swansea when it's a drastically changed 11. We're seeing the same themes against Michelin. So it's over these 7 games, it hasn't been up to expectations. And before we came on air, we were just chatting briefly, and I think the issue with any manager this year, whether it be Nuno, whether it be Ange, whether it be one of the other names that's linked, is the expectations of not only the fans at the club after what happened last season, but the expectations of Marinakis. He's been clear in his motive. He wants to take Forest to the top. So that changes the pressure on the manager. It changes the sort of idea that a manager could come in, because being realistic, Forest finishing 12th in the Premier League and having a good Europa League run is a good season for Forest. But based on last season and the massive sort of overachievement that went on, that increases expectations. So whether it's Ange, whether it's whoever, they're not going to be given time. They're not going to be given time to get results, to implement a style of play. And like I said, when I came on, when Ange had just been appointed, Ange's style of play takes a full pre-season. If you want to build and you want to link up the back 4 or the back 3 that he's doing now, and with the midfield pivots, and be really sort of intricate in how you build and get everyone on the same, playing from the same sheet, then that takes time. And to come into a job when I think he was hired just before the Arsenal game, had 1 day's training before Arsenal, and then he's you have to be a bit pragmatic. You have to look and go, okay, I need to get results straight away. I need to get the fans on side, because the majority of fans were supportive of Nuno at the time. But yeah, it's been a difficult start for him, and yeah, those sort of stats that we brought out there and don't really sort of make for pleasant reading.
So time, obviously, a huge commodity in sport. When you're a player on a pitch, and this might have happened to you, I don't know, but you hear sacked in the morning, do you go into a dressing room afterwards as a group of lads and think, oh, this is a rocky spot for a manager, for our manager to be in, and that chat kind of festers and becomes a thing in the dressing room, even more so after 6 games, which is mental. But we've discussed all the reasons for it. But what from a player's point of view there?
I think at our level, it's probably different because you haven't got that exposure. There's not every media outlet isn't talking about your manager, whereas everything you look on Twitter, you flick the TV on, it's talking about, is Ange going? I mean, luckily, Sir Jim Ratcliffe's come out and said he wants to give Amorim 3 years, so that's kind of taken the heat off Ange, I think. Yeah. So that's taken the heat off Ange at the minute. But I think with management at our level, look, our club's unique. We've got an excellent manager that's been there for 16 years. It's a very, very stable club. I've been on the flip side of that and been managed by Joey Barton. So I've had both sort of sides of this. And in terms of look, I've been in teams before, not at Harrogate, but I've been in teams before where you've heard those chants. And as a player, it all depends on your situation. If you're happy with that manager, if the manager's playing you, if you like his style of football, if you like his day-to-day routine, because that's a big thing. I said this on the last one, when a new manager comes in, they might change the day off that you have, or they might change the training schedule, or they might change how many sessions you do in a week, and if you're not happy with that, then it puts that bit of doubt in your mind. But look, these boys, or the Forest players, they'll see it, they'll see all the unrest, they'll have their own opinions, and they'll chat about it, I guess, obviously behind closed doors. But in terms of performance on the pitch, I'd like to think that players are professional enough to go and deliver a performance regardless of kind of the noise. And I think it can go one of two ways in terms of if Ange is at the training ground and he's got everyone behind him and the boys are really buying into him, then it can be time for the leaders in the dressing room. So Gibbs White, Yates, players like that, Milenkovic, Murillo, Sells, right, boys, come on, roll your sleeves up, let's dig in for the manager. I almost feel like you're letting him down, because like I alluded to with the stats and stuff, there's certain things you can put at Ange's door, but then there's certain things you have to look at the players who aren't necessarily delivering the levels of performance that they have done well over the last sort of 12 to 18 months at Forest. But yeah, as a player, you do see the noise, you see kind of what gets said. Like I said, this is a different scenario because every outlet's talking about Ange. But with players are human beings, players have emotions, and football players are selfish. You want to be playing every week, you want to be playing in a winning team. So if your situation is good, you're going to be more supportive of the manager. If you're not necessarily playing, or you look at like Maresca at Chelsea, you put players in the quote unquote bomb squad, you put them in that, and you don't get buy-in from those players. So it all depends on your own situation, really. But it doesn't seem from the outside looking in to be a happy sort of camp at the minute.
Just one last one before I ask you about whether you think Ange is done or not. Would you, as a senior player, want, and this won't happen at Harrogate when I ask the whole question for reasons I'll explain, but would you want the chairman to consult with senior players on a manager before they sack them? Or is that a very rocky road for player power? And obviously that won't happen at Harrogate because the manager's dad is the chairman. But in general, I
think owners again, I've never really had that at a club where owners have got involved in in-game decisions or kind of tactics or whatever. Now, as a player, if the owner was coming into the dressing room after games, or coming to the training ground, or chatting about tactics, or dishing out criticism to players after games, then that probably wouldn't sit right with me, because that's the manager's job, that's the head coach's job, that's what you employ the managers to do. So I think, again, with Marinakis, he's obviously very sort of emotive. You saw the scenes last year when he's on the pitch at the end of the game,
and he's always in the tunnel when we've had a win and hugging players, which is great. But when so Ange's on the ropes now, would you want him to speak to Morgan and canvass opinion of the dressing room, or is that a bad idea?
Me personally, no.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want that. I think the onus there would be if Morgan or Ryan Yates or obviously Yates is a skipper. I think if he felt particularly strongly and the core group of players felt particularly strongly about backing Ange Postecoglou, then it would be on them to speak to the ownership or about it. I think if the owners come in and trying to fish and ask players I just don't think that ends well. But what you also won't find is, I don't think you'll find players coming out and publicly supporting the management on social media platforms just because of being tied to a manager. So if you come out and publicly support a manager that then ends up leaving, and a new manager comes in, then they may look at that player and be like, well, he was his man. Like, he may not be thought of in the same light as other players. So it's a very political game to play from ownership, players, management. For me, as a player, with my player's hat on, I would, if I was being asked my opinion on the manager by the person responsible for hiring or firing him, I would feel a bit uncomfortable having that conversation with him. And I don't think there's any benefit to it, because, particularly with an owner like Marinakis, because I don't think he listens to anyone. I think he's very clear in who's in charge and whose opinion at the football club matters.
Yeah. I was just interested as a general one. I thought it was a good one. Right, last question then. We've asked the same question everyone's discussed all week. A way back for Ange on baseball, especially on what you've seen, or does it feel inevitable that this isn't going to work?
I would say I don't think there's a way back. I think that from what's gone on the past few weeks, with the media outcry, with the ambitions of the owner, of what he very publicly wants to achieve for the football club, I think anything or anyone that puts that vision in jeopardy will be removed from position. And I just think with the Nuno decision, if the shift of Forest style of play was the intention this season, and if the Nuno decision, if it was thought of that Nuno maybe couldn't deliver that, then why was the trigger not pulled earlier? Because you would have had the same level of unrest from Forest fans, whether it was done at the start of pre-season or whether it's done 3 games into the season. And then it gives a manager to bed their ideas in. In terms of alternatives, I don't really know what the alternative is. Luckily, I'm not paid to make those.
That's always the flip side of the coin, isn't it?
Yeah, to make those decisions, and it's very easy for me and pundits and people to talk about people, but you don't want to talk about people losing the job, and you don't want to advocate for that. But I think that the big thing you said was that time is such a commodity in football that people aren't afforded very often. And I can't see Ange being given time to turn it around when 6 games into his tenure, fans are chanting sacked in the morning. The underlying numbers aren't great. The level of performance hasn't been great. And ultimately the results haven't been great. Now, there's an international break. Forest play Chelsea. Is it a week on Saturday? I think it's 12:30 kickoff.
Yeah.
If he is going to be removed, I would expect it to be done like now, tomorrow, to give them time to bring someone in to be able to move the club forward. I don't think the ownership would go for a stopgap. I think it would be someone who they want to back long term. But yeah, it's not nice being sat on here and saying that I think Ange will go, but I just think from what we saw with the Nuno situation over those few early weeks of the season, how it's not immediately improved results, how the media narrative around Postecoglou and what happened at Spurs last year, albeit, yes, he did win the Europa League, but the way that they played in the Premier League, they tanked that season because he put all his eggs in winning the Europa League, and it paid off for him. But yeah, I just think I don't think he'll be given time to turn it around. I think if he is afforded the time and Forest stick with him, then there is a chance that it could come good if he gets the players to buy into and gel quickly into his style of football. But one thing Forest needed to do this season was strengthen the squad depth, because with competing in Europe, competing in the Premier League, and they did that. Forest invested a lot of money into the summer in some extremely talented players. So Forest have a really strong squad now, and it's about finding the person to get the best out of them. And you're asking my opinion. I can't see Ange being in charge much longer.
Just before we let you go, your club's an interesting case study. It's totally different, obviously, scrutiny and scale, and obviously, we referenced that the manager's dad is the chairman. But I remember, we're going back way into the distant times when I was covering Nuneaton, and I think you might have been playing for Harrogate then, or you might have been playing for Nuneaton. I think Simon Weaver was there for a while before you got into the Football League. Time, unless I'm wrong, was a commodity. It was afforded to him, and he took a club that had gates of 300 in Conference North and was pretty average, as I recall. And now you're pretty established in League Two, and as big as the club's ever been. And I guess, was time a big factor there from your memories of it or not?
Yeah, so the gaffer took over 2009, 2010, I think it was. I think he was a player manager, but his dad wasn't the chairman then. When he first took over as manager, it was the old chairman. And then I think it was probably around 2015. I think his dad owned a company called Strata. They do homes, Yorkshire, across the north, and that. He decided to buy the club in 2015, and then the big sort of turning point was going full time. So I signed the summer of 2017, and there was a few of us that are still there today that signed in that summer, and the club went full time, and that was the year we got promoted from the Conference North to the Conference. We had 2 years, lost in the playoffs the first year in the Conference. Then the second year we beat Notts at Wembley with no one in the stadium to get into the Football League. And look, what the journey that the club's gone on has been incredible, and the manager and his family and the backroom staff deserve immense credit for what they've done for the football club. But it's had to accelerate. The growth on the pitch has meant that the growth off the pitch has had to be accelerated. So we had an artificial surface that had to be ripped up when we got to the Football League, and you have to meet ground requirements. So stands have to be built, the change rooms have to be a certain size, so they have to be extended. You have to provide hospitality facilities. So the club's grown at an accelerated rate. And even when I first signed, we were playing Alfreton in front of 500-600 people, whereas now you regularly getting gates of 3,000 plus, which, like I said, is testament to the back room and the boardroom and the manager and his family and what they've done for the football club. But yeah, we're in a decent spot. We got beat on Monday night by Crewe on Sky, but the league's quite tight. We're 4 points off the playoffs. It's League Two is an interesting league. I don't think many Forest fans will pay attention, but hopefully from this we get a few Harrogate fans and people that will kind of tune in to see how Harrogate are doing.
Well, I follow your results. I do. And I'll talk about that quickly in one sec. It was just interesting. We're talking about a manager who's been here for 3 weeks and versus a manager who's been here for 15 years or whatever it is with Simon. Yeah. But I do follow your results. You had a little sticky patch, and then you had a win at Gillingham or something. It just shows how things can turn.
Gillingham, they'd been unbeaten in 21 games since Gareth Ainsworth took over, and we went there a couple of weekends ago and beat them 1-0 to end that unbeaten streak. And I think we'd have busted a lot of accumulators that weekend. I think we might have busted mine, I think. Yeah, we busted the banker that weekend. But yeah, we had a bit of a patch. We lost sort of 3 or 4 on the spin, I think, in the league, and then we turned it around, beat Shrewsbury, beat Gillingham, lost to Crewe the other night. We've got Fleetwood away on Saturday. So yeah, it's League Two is an interesting league. I think it's the league where anyone literally can beat anyone. It's a fun league to watch, and there's a lot of really good players. There's a lot of teams that have really big budgets as well. Lads getting paid some serious money at some of the bigger clubs in the league. But we're doing all right. Yeah, we're keep improving year on year, and there's always that one team, like Crawley did it a couple of years ago, Morecambe did it, that sneak into the playoffs and end up getting promoted. So you never know. We've got some really good players, really good club, really good manager. So yeah, let's see if we can surprise a few people.
Hopefully so. Hopefully so. I only reference that result because it's the result that Ange needs. I'm just not sure it's going to come. That Chelsea one, it could change a lot of things, but yeah, it feels rough at the moment. Right, we shall leave it there. Big thanks to Belly. If you appreciate his efforts, hit like, hit subscribe. That's a really cheap way to get people to do what you want. Do consider membership or Patreon, or just a lovely 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. We shall be back tomorrow with a listener Q&A, depending on what happens, as James said, if anything does happen with Ange. But the plan is a listener Q&A, so I'll put an appeal out for questions on Twitter and in the members chat area at some point in time. Belly, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Yep, no worries. Thanks for having me on as always. And sorry, it's a bit doom and gloom. Hopefully, the next one can be a bit more upbeat and positive.
Hopefully so. Hopefully so. We'll have Belly on again soon. But in the meantime, hit like before we go. And if we don't see you tomorrow, we shall see you soon.